Hello, Christopher and Jane Gillingham in the UK. And Julia Zahn welcoming people as well. Gordon Smith in Denmark. Pierre DeYoung in SoCal. Rick Bannerow in Connecticut. Joe Holtzman in Colorado. Alistair Murray down in Melbourne and Oz. Graham Sweeney up in Yellon, Shetland, Scotland. Getting snow tomorrow, he says. Julie Aarons in Cleveland. Welcome, everybody. Great show. We got Robbie standing by in Pasadena. We'll be with him in a minute. Welcome to our show number 655. Yay. Hello, everybody. Hello, Julia, my co-host, and everything else. Coordinating producer, Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club. Great to have you with us, Julia, again.
Yes, indeed.
And we're getting up there close to 700 now. We're past the 655.
I know. It goes so quickly.
And a very interesting show. You know, the show is not necessarily about sailing. We cover a lot of different topics on here, don't we, Julia? It's about cool people who happen, for the most part, to be sailors. And we've got one today standing by in Pasadena, PhD candidate, Robbie King, who's a GovCup guru. Got to know him last year down at the Governor's Cup. Delighted to have him on down in SoCal. Pasadena is a suburb. Would you call it a suburb, Julia?
No, they wouldn't call
Separate
it a
city.
It's a city.
Outside of LA, and delighted to have him on down there at CalTech. I had that on the cover slide for today. Graham Sweeney saying, Julia, you look radiant.
Oh, Graham, stick around.
Pierre DeYoung saying, yeah, we cover drinking. We do every now and then. It's the sailing show, drinking show with a sailing habit. Julia's blouse and scarf combination is delightful.
Thank you, guys.
Huh?
Yeah.
It is. It is beautiful. Let's get on here and thank it was a very interesting show also on Tuesday. We had Fernando Happy is his nickname, Fernando Alegre, because, of course, Alegre means happy in Spanish. He is from Peru originally and is a coach extraordinaire in particularly the Opti class, but he's been coaching other Olympic classes. And we had him on updating us on his whereabouts, what he's been up to, and the controversy from the South American Optimus Championships in April of this year. And I think he explained himself very well, Julia.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I have had a lot, maybe more notes on that show, post-show, than any show in memory. We had a lot of comments from various people, Opti parents, pro and con, mostly pro.
Yeah.
Joe Holtzman sent a nice note in telling us how well he thought we handled that interview with and Fernando, too, how well he handled it, and so on and so forth. So thanks, Fernando, for that. Julia, go ahead.
That's good. No, it served its purpose.
Yeah, it did, and I think it helped clear the air, and the guy's a great coach. He, nonetheless, has continued to go from strength to strength here. A couple of his mentees from later in the summer that won, I think, silver and bronze at one of the big championships, and the guy's he's an amazing talent and coach, Fernando Happy Alegre. On the war, we can't not talk about the war for a minute. We went to bed last night. This was down your way, Robbie, KTLA, one of the big, if not the biggest TV station, independent station, actually, down in LA. Very popular morning show. We went to bed last night up here in NorCal as well and across the country. They're telling us that security has increased across the nation because of this day of jihad, which has been proclaimed by one of the Hamas ex-leaders. And, of course, Israel has vowed in the meantime, according to the Sydney Morning Herald, this is the paper from the 13th. It's now the 14th down there in Sydney, so it's technically yesterday's paper. But as you probably all know, Israel is, in fact, just before we went to air, it's moving into that part of the world, into that territory. And sadly, it looks like it's going to be even uglier than it's already been. That was the headline in the 13th. Yes, technically yesterday's papers today here. The FT in London. This is I think the UK version. It's pretty much the same. Washington is urging restraint on Israel. Yeah, okay. But look at this little comment there on the subhead on the right. Saudis and Iran are in talks. And I talked to Julie Aarons and others about the implications of this on the America's Cup, that pre-event, which is scheduled to take place in a couple months' time in Jeddah.
Yep.
And I talked with a senior series, I texted with a senior series America's Cup person this morning, Julia, and that event has not been called off, but no one can imagine that it's going to continue. It's going to go on. And if it does, people have, the German word is Scheisse. They have Scheisse for brains if they let that event continue, in my never so humble opinion. New York Police Department on high alert. The New York Daily News reports this morning that in the New York Daily News today, and enough of that, because this violence in Gaza, the retaliation, I think everything we said on the show on Tuesday is probably sadly coming true. And I still don't understand. There's some games being played way down the road, some chess games being played. And sadly, I think the people both in the Gaza and in Israel, the citizens, are the ones really.
The pawns.
Are the pawns in all of this, sadly. But it's taken our mind off of, maybe the good news is, taking our mind off Ukraine.
Yes.
We haven't talked about that in a while.
For a day
or COVID.
Two.
What is today? Well, it's, among other things, it's the Friday the 13th, and we got this note from one of our foes saying, yeah, Friday the 13th, where the superstition come from, many Christians at least believe it's from the Last Supper or the crucifixion, where 13 people were present. However, look into Norse. Now, this is not from a Norseman. Yeah. This is from, in fact, he's living now at the opposite end of the globe, but he sent this in. He says, Howard, look into Norse mythology. Where's Graham Sweeney when we need him?
Yes.
And we see this. One source mentioned for the unlucky nature of the number 13 is a Norse myth about 12 gods having a dinner party in Valhalla. The trickster god Loki, who was not invited, arrived as the 13th guest and arranged for Hur, I guess it is, to shoot Balder with a mistletoe-tipped arrow. And Balder died, and the whole earth got dark. The whole earth mourned. It was a bad, unlucky day, according to Norse mythology. This major event in that region's mythology, at least, caused the number 13 to be considered unlucky. Interesting how the story of the Last Supper has so much in common with Norse mythology. Now, had you heard that story before?
Something similar.
I hadn't. And so I appreciate that being sent in by none other than Ted Ryman down in Cape Town.
Ted Ryman's always at the top of those
He
things.
is on top of things as usual. What is today being celebrated in the world, Julia? There's a bit of a hint there behind that blue lower third, big lower third. It is, believe it or not, World Egg Day.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's why I put in the show notes about Googie and Goggy and apparently the Brits. We'll have to ask Robbie in a moment about what the nickname for eggs in the UK and beyond. Googie.
Googie?
G-O-G-G-Y. Did you see in the show notes? I had that. We'll have to ask.
I did, but I didn't understand.
We'll ask Graham Sweeney. We'll ask Robbie in a minute. But it is World Egg Day. And obviously the farmers are promoting and the egg producers are promoting this a way to tell us how healthy these things are. World Egg Day celebrates these delightful little packages of delicious and incredibly important role they play in the day-to-day lives of humans all over the planet.
And my diet.
And since 1996, World Egg Day has been celebrated every year on the second Friday in October. And I will say that after the show, I helped get Julia back upstairs to her Commodore suite after the show, and her morning lady fixes the best deviled eggs. And I always get one as my reward for getting through the show in one piece and taking Julia back upstairs. So happy World Egg Day, Friday the 13th of October, always the second Friday in October. Now, talking about good eggs, I've been rehearsing that segue, Julia. Do you know who that is?
Oh,
our friends down in Newport Harbor. I think Robbie probably knows them as well. That is the late, great Bill Ficker's daughter, Dion.
Oh, yes.
And Peter McDonald, husband and wife of some 36 years. They're just celebrating it in the last couple of days. Two of the nicest people in the world.
Indeed.
I put that photo up on my Facebook page, I think yesterday or maybe this morning, and it's gotten almost as many comments as Robbie King's photo got when I put that picture of him sailing in the GovCup last year. I can't help but look at this photo and think of that movie that was out earlier this year called Barbie.
Oh, yeah.
Barbie and Ken. This is the Barbie and Ken of Newport Beach, I think. Two of the nicest people, and Peter, we've done a lot of sailing with him, and nice folks. Happy 36th, Dion and Peter.
Indeed.
Happy 36th. We said we'd move this slide to the top of the show, and we have. Please support us. Become a patron. This is viewer-supported media. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We would appreciate that very much. You're continuing. A lot of you already support us and give us $1 or $2 or $5 a week, a month. Some more than that, some less than that.
Yes.
Check in with the comments and our Fozy and others who are on. John Hanfield is back. Haven't seen him in a while. He's been at the Black Pearl in Newport, our second favorite place there.
I like Graham Sweeney's report of World Oof Day.
In French. Excellent, Phil Walker. Okay, there's a lot of puns now. Not to mention the importance they play in the day-to-day lives of the hens, Clark Chapin.
Thank you, Charlie.
Shouldn't all eggs be allowed to mature? You could count on Stingray.
Yes.
To make that's not a finger wagger, I don't think, Julie, but he works hard to get a finger wag, not to go over the line, but at least get. Friday the 13th comes from a purge of crusaders by the church. Julie Ahrens, who is of the Jewish faith. That's interesting. A Norse, my kingdom. Graham Sweeney saying, a kingdom for a Norse. I thought the unlucky nature of 13 came from the number of steps constructed on gallows. I wonder if that's a chicken. Sorry to say this, a chicken and egg situation. Chris, actually. Okay, enough. Support us on Patreon. Thank you to all of you who do. Let's get to Robbie King, who is standing patiently by. The poor guy is between classes. He's between I don't know what all else. We managed to get him on today. We've been talking about this, Robbie, for over a year. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Delighted to have you. Robbie, tell us, you're obviously a very good sailor. You were selected to sail in GovCup last year, which is where we met. And tell us a little bit about you're from the UK. Tell us about your upbringing as a sailor and what you did and what you won and how you ended up in Pasadena at one of the most amazing, learning to be a rocket scientist at CalTech.
Yeah, so I'm from London, and I've sailed my whole life competitively. I guess since very young age, my dad got me into it, and so I did Optimus 420s as a youth sailor, and then I sailed at college and picked up match racing, and so sailing's a big part of my life, but that's not actually the reason I moved to Pasadena. It's more that I'm doing a PhD at CalTech right now, so it's sort of a different part of my life is the reason I ended up here. But yeah, so Tom and I met at the GovCup last year. That was a great regatta, super fun. One of my favorite regattas of all time, I'd say, actually. Yeah.
Well, and when we met, I put this on my Facebook post when I was promoting the show, maybe, in fact, in several different places, and I said, okay, we're going to have Robbie on, and to explain once and for all, hopefully we understand it. I'm sure your explanation will be crystal clear. Quantum computing, what is it? Where is it headed? What's the impact on our lives and possibly on our sport? Let's talk a little bit about AI while we're at it. And before we get into that is the topic. And again, this show is about cool people who happen to be sailors and whatever we've talked about wine on here before. We've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about Andy Rose, who, when he saw you were coming on, our Super Fozy and GovCup guru down in Newport Beach, Andy said on Facebook, indeed, Robbie is a great guy. As a political science major, that is Andy, I enjoyed not understanding most of what Robbie said and trying to explain quantum computing when you were down at GovCup last year. So with that introduction from a famously good sailor, and as I said in my Facebook post, I won't mention who it was that said it, but he said you are, when he heard you were coming to GovCup, he told me, he said, well, Robbie will be as smart as all of the other sailors combined.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And
I think he was actually talking about the It's Okay crew, not about the GovCup competitors when he said that.
It may have been, but I think it was extrapolated to both. But he was, if you get him out on It's Okay, the Andrews 50 that we campaigned, which I guess you did sail on Thursday night, right, during GovCup?
Yeah, I've sailed it a couple times actually. Andy's invited me on, so that's very fun.
Are you smarter than all the rest of the guys combined on It's Okay when you're on the boat?
I'd have to say no to that question, I think.
I think
better.
I don't know what the other. There's some comment. Quantum computing is how your sailmaker puts his kids through college. If your sailmaker is quantum. Hey, Robbie, any opinions on eggs? Drip Toe Debroy. Was that a friend of yours? Drip Toe?
Yeah, that is actually a friend. He also works in he works for Google in quantum computing. So I dripped her.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you get some friends on here, but thanks to Andy Rose for that comment. I thought we'd open, Robbie, with this video from, first of all, you remember this professor's name before I run the video? The video I sent you?
Sorry? Oh, yeah, that was, I think the one you sent was a video of Fernando Brandao, who was a professor at CalTech until recently, and now he's the lead of the AWS, the Amazon quantum computing team. So yeah, he's a huge expert in the field, and worth listening to. So yeah.
Okay, so let's run the video, and then you can tell us some more about him and the connection between CalTech now and Amazon, AWS, Amazon Web Services, because that's apparently a big deal going forward. Here's a look.
We think quantum mechanics is the fundamental theory of nature. Until we have a computer which can really, simulate what is around us, it's kind of an incomplete computer in a sense, right? So let's build a quantum computer for that, which can truly simulate nature, right? So it's like a new paradigm for computing. It's not just about like making our current computers a little bit faster, right, or a little bit better, but it's about building a completely new kind of computer, a computer where the building blocks, they are not bits, but they are what we call qubits. They are like elementary quantum mechanical systems of like photon or for electron.
We're starting to build quantum computing machines that can emulate and simulate small quantum systems, but they're too noisy right now. And their error rates are sort of 1% to 0.1% every gate operation you might perform.
We can do like 200 or so operations before there is a failure. So that's an improvement, but if you think about a transistor, right, the classical counterparts of a qubit, there we can make like hundreds of billions of operations before error. And the reason for that, these quantum mechanical systems, in a way, they are very fragile objects. So they interact with the environment, right, with other particles nearby them, with stray magnetic fields and all kinds of other systems, and they lose their quantum features very quickly.
As we're doing a computation, how can we correct for these errors so that they don't build up, and in a way that we don't create new errors? It turns out that's a really hard thing to do with quantum systems, much different than in a classical system. We're looking around at all sorts of different material systems and physical systems to implement qubits and quantum computers.
But I really think that this very serious effort that we have right now and scale up these quantum systems, it will pay off. And in 10 years, way more qubits, right? Much better control of them.
We will be able to, model and simulate different types of materials, a small scale in the beginning, but that will teach us more about quantum systems themselves, in particular how many particles interact and the different exotic types of materials that can emerge. I think over the next 5 years, you'll start to see better optimization problems where you might have some constraints on a system, but it's got so many different variables in it that you want to know under those constraints, what's the optimal solution? It's not so much a specific application, but it gets at the heart of what's interesting about quantum information science and about quantum computers in general. It is a very different way of managing information and computing information than we do classically.
Once we get there, indeed, I'm sure there will be other applications. We never have built a system with billions of quantum particles strongly interact with each other and completely isolated from the environment, right? So maybe there's new physics there that we don't understand, right? And it will be very exciting to see what happens.
Okay. Now I understand it perfectly, Julia.
Yes.
Robbie, with that introduction, tell us and all the people watching around the world, what is quantum computing?
Yeah, okay, so is it my turn to do the same now, to try and
Your turn.
introduce it? Okay. So I sent you some slides, is that right? And you can get them up. Okay, great. Okay, so I threw these together this week, and this is my attempt to give my take on the current state of affairs of quantum computing. So the first slide is just to sort of put out there at first a warning to not believe everything you read about this technology. And because for a number of reasons, there's a lot of sort of false claims going around in the media and by various people, and especially in like the sort of mainstream news and stuff. A lot of the things you read are sort of, not exactly true. So I just wanted to, put that disclaimer as sort of someone outside of the field. It's quite easy to get the wrong idea. So that's the first thing I want to say. So that was this, and then okay. So with that, we can go on to the okay. So this is a weird sort of picture I put up, but I was trying to come up with what is the way to describe what is different about quantum mechanics and what we think of as usual information or usual physics that we see every day. And I think the way to quickly describe it is the following. So our current best understanding of what happens at the fundamental layer of reality of the universe, so the sort of the laws that govern the subatomic particles and the fundamental sort of physics of the universe, tells us that when a system is evolving between preparing it and then looking at it later, in the intermediate phase, it goes through this incredible explosion of complexity where there's no way of possibly writing down what the system is doing when you're not watching it. So that's sort of what I tried to put in this picture. This picture is actually repurposed from a different paper, which the experts will sort of recognize. But this is sort of the reason why quantum mechanics is different. It's because it's hard to simulate this. Like if you were trying to, write a classical algorithm which could predict what's going to happen, you have to sort of, take into account all of these, many paths, and this is an impossible thing to do. So this is the reason why quantum is different in a nutshell. So with that, we can move on to the next slide. Right. So then what is the idea behind quantum computers? It says, well, okay, if the fundamental laws of physics are quantum mechanical, then why don't we build a computer which exploits this? Why don't we build a computer which, runs on the laws of quantum mechanics, and then it too can sort of use this, this large complexity of the quantum state to do things. So if we're going to sort of tackle quantum problems, or if we're going to, perform computational tasks in a quantum world, we want to also have the power of quantum mechanics in our computers. So this is the idea. Okay, so this is sort of my answer to the question of sort of a priori, why was it conceived of as an idea? Okay, and I think the next slide is about actual things that we can do with quantum computers. Right, yes, so this is a list of the sort of most promising concrete applications that could come out of building such a device. So I sort of put these in order from like most studied and most solid to like less, more skeptical. So the first one is that, from before we saw, like any system that is governed by quantum mechanics. So this could be some chemical reaction or some material which is, in some quantum state, like a superconductor, or like anything where there's like a solar panel material, anything where there's like a quantum mechanical phenomenon going on, is very hard to simulate without quantum computers, for the reason that it's extremely complex to describe. So if we had a quantum computer which was sort of enhanced and was sort of exploiting quantum mechanics itself, it could maybe simulate these sorts of systems. So I'd say this is the number one reason to build it, is because at the moment we have no way or no idea what's going on with these chemical reactions or these materials, and we could model them. In theory, we could model them perfectly with a quantum computer, and this could lead to breakthroughs in fields such as drug discovery or material science, or these kind of fields where quantum mechanics is important to understanding what's going on. So that's like definitely number one. Number two is that there's also the possibility that this sort of exponential power that is, present in quantum mechanics, that you can exploit it to solve regular sort of computational problems. And one big example which had a lot of influence on the field was Shor's algorithm for factoring large numbers. So it turns out that if you have a very big number, which is a product of a bunch of smaller prime numbers, it's a very hard problem to take the big number and break it up into its prime factors. So you basically, with a normal computer, what you have to do is you just have to check every single number, basically. I mean, you can do something slightly more clever than that, but it takes a long time. Now, there's an algorithm that was discovered by Peter Shor, who's a professor at MIT currently, which, using a quantum computer, you could solve this task. And this was a big sort of surprise and sort of gave a lot of energy to the field, where people were like, okay, maybe we can solve some actual non-quantum mechanical problems by exploiting quantum mechanics. And but I would say on this one, we don't have many examples other than factoring. We have a few more, but we don't have like a whole list of things that we're dying to do when in this sort of regime. But I should also say that if you see anything about quantum computers breaking cryptography, it's because of this factoring thing. It's because a lot of cryptography, most notably the RSA system, relies on factoring being hard for it to be secure. So if you had a quantum computer that could factor numbers, you could possibly break a lot of the encryption schemes that exist today. So that's one thing. What were my last two? Oh, I can't see oh, there we go, thanks. Okay, so then the last two are sort of more new. And the third one is, okay, so maybe we could do machine learning on quantum systems using a quantum computer, and you could sort of learn about physical phenomenon and physical systems, much more efficiently by exploiting quantum information processing. And then the last one is, sort of a surprising thing to hear from experts, but a lot of people are very actually fundamentally skeptical of the laws of quantum mechanics, just because they're so strange and so weird, and we don't really understand what's going on. And I guess the center of this is the so-called measurement problem, which is that when you look at a quantum system, it seems to sort of just instantaneously collapse, and people don't really understand why this happens or what it means, and it relates to things like consciousness and all of this like philosophical stuff, and we don't really understand it. So I guess one way to look at quantum computing, and this was actually one of my advisors from previously said this to me, where he was like, I expect that the attempt to build a quantum computer will show that quantum mechanics is sort of incorrect in some way, which would be extremely exciting from a scientific perspective, because it's sort of, you can view it as a physical experiment that you're saying, okay, we have this theory that predicts we should be able to build these crazy devices, so let's go and try and build them. And if it doesn't work for some reason, then it will be because we don't understand the physics fully, and then it will give us a new understanding of the world. So that is, perhaps not a commercial application, but a very exciting one for physicists and scientists. Okay,
I'm just gonna let you carry on here. You've got another slide, and then there's people with questions, and people like, I'm sure Julie and myself, who are utterly confused, or at least partially confused. So let's do the last slide, and then we'll get back to questions from all the people on. We got two more slides, Robbie.
Okay, I'll start going faster. Is that?
No, you don't have to go faster. This is great.
Oh, okay.
We're learning about quantum computing, and we're learning about you, which is very interesting.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, so that was my, we're done with the why should we build it. So I'm hoping to have convinced you that it's a worthwhile sort of pursuit. Now the rest of the talk is about how will we achieve this task. So you need to build a computer out of a substrate which obeys quantum physics, and you can control it, and it sort of remains quantum mechanical throughout the computation. So here are probably the top four platforms that people are trying at the moment. The first is superconducting qubits, or I mean, I will read them out. You can see them here. Yeah, so there are sort of various different ways you can imagine encoding quantum information in a physical system in a computer, and we're not sure which one will win. And there are companies and there are academic labs trying all of them, and we don't know at the moment. I couldn't find a picture of a photonics quantum computer, so I just put the Pink Floyd album cover.
You've got more comments on that than anything else. You got Ryman is saying Pink Floyd ahead of their time. Steve Gruber saying first thing I've understood is that Pink Floyd. Okay.
Yeah, that's meant to be photonics. Like light going. You can build quantum computers out of light, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so I think the next slide is about. Right. So this is about error correction, which we heard a bit about in the video from earlier. Quantum computers are prone to sort of errors from the environment, and so you have to deal with these because as you scale up the size of the computer, you get more errors. So at some point, you'll just be completely overwhelmed. Now, there's a way to do this called quantum error correction, which was a big breakthrough, 20 years ago or so, that this is possible. But the catch is that you need the physical error rate to be below some threshold. And I think the threshold is roughly 1%. So you need every time you do something in the computer, like you apply an operation, it has some probability of failing. That's the way you can think about it. And you need the probability that it's going to fail to be less than 1 in 100. It can't be like 1 in 10. That's going to be too much. But if it was like 1 in 1,000, that would be very good. And then if you're below this threshold, then you can do this thing called quantum error correction, which allows you to scale up the size of your computer, and you actually get less errors as you make it bigger rather than more errors. So that's very good. And at the moment, the game is that we are trying to improve the hardware so that the error rates sort of creep below this threshold to the extent where we can start to apply this technique of error correction. And we're not there yet. So at the moment, we're above, or we're roughly around the threshold. And we want to be like way below it. So this is the sort of the physical hardware. That's what needs to happen.
Okay.
That needs to happen over there for us to succeed in this mission. And then I think I had one more slide.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this is my final slide. Here, the takeaway is that we're far away from building such a fault-tolerant quantum computer. And we're not completely sure what we'll do with it when we have them either. So that's another sort of question, which is probably the one that I mostly work on. And then my last message is that we need more people in the field. So if you have technical skills, if you're an engineer or a physicist or a software engineer, you should consider getting involved because it's wide open at the moment. Yeah.
Julia, you've got a fourth career.
I do, and I've been thinking about meshing this with sailing, and sailing is using all of these factors, but we do it in our head instead of in the computer right now for the fluid dynamics.
Yeah, but you spent time down there at CalArts. You were one of the founders of CalArts, which is right next door to CalTech, right? But you could go down there and be, what was the slide? They need engineers, physicists, software, computer science. You can be down there tomorrow and be having a fourth career instead of a talk show host with some crouton like me. Robbie, back to you now. What is quantum computing in a sentence? What is it? What are you doing at the quantum level instead of at the silicon level, at the digital level?
Right. Well, yeah, we're trying to build computers which harness the laws of quantum physics to do things that we couldn't do otherwise. That's in one sentence.
And yeah. But it sounded like one of your examples was that you're also trying to build quantum computers that will do things that are what do you call what we think of as normal digital computers? Yeah, that's right. Okay, so you're trying to get at the quantum level. I think we all understand. It's a little bit like talking to Einstein, perhaps, on his theories back in the early part of the last century. Now we sort of understand relativity, general and special. We sort of understand it. But there's jokes flying around here, and you mentioned it. We all sort of, I think, understand the uncertainty principle. And you've got the Stingray saying, I have a quantum mechanics uncertainty principle joke, but you can know either what the joke is or how funny it is, but not both. Tell us, if you would, just this whole uncertainty, and you've talked about it, you've talked around it, about the uncertainty principle and the lack of ability to measure things, because once you try to measure it, it's different. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so I would actually say that the uncertainty principle is not something that is mysterious to us. It just arises because, so if people sort of from a different background can think of like a Fourier transform. So if you have, you know, something that's very localized in position space, and you do a Fourier transform, it sort of spreads out. So this is the only thing that's going on there, is that, you know, if you're, but I realize that's a technical explanation, but I would say that, so what it's really saying is that you can't, there are things that you want to know about a quantum system which you can't simultaneously know. Mm-hmm. Like they sort of mess up each other. They frustrate, and you can't, yeah.
How close?
But that's not a mysterious part of quantum physics.
How close are you? You've actually, as I understand it, you've got, and I read a little bit about this and follow it in layman's terms, obviously, but you've got quantum computers, but as you said, they're not very reliable at this point. Is that environmental influence? What are the problems causing it to be unreliable?
Yeah, that's right. Well, right. So there's sort of a fundamental conflict going on that at the beginning, I mean, I wasn't around, but I heard that a lot of serious sort of physicists said that this would never be possible. And the reason is because a quantum system is only complex if you're not looking at it. Like if you're looking at it, then it's simple again, because you know what it is. So in order to get the power of quantum physics, you need to not look at it. But then simultaneously, you want to have it in a computer and you want to do computation with it. So you want it to be programmable. So in other words, you need to control it, and you need to control it from the outside world. So you need to be interacting with it and telling it what to do.
Which was sorry for interrupting, which was my next question. So we have a keyboard or a mouse, or we do input in various ways now into a digital computer. And are you saying that just the sheer, how do you input? How do you program a quantum computer as opposed to a digital computer? How do you physically?
Right, it depends on the platform. It's a good question. And to be honest, I'm not like an expert on this. I don't work on the hardware side. But at the moment, we have sort of a chip which has the qubits on it, and a bunch of control wires which are carrying, I guess, electromagnetic pulses or optical pulses or whatever. And we sort of send them in to the chip has to be in a fridge because it has to be very cold.
That's cold?
Another thing that, oh, like very, very, very cold.
I mean, how close? How close to absolute zero, if there is such a thing?
Like much less than a degree, close to absolute zero. So like 0.0 something degrees Kelvin.
And why, in a nutshell, why does it have to be so cold?
It has to be so cold because if it's hot, it's as if it's being looked at, which is sort of confusing. But heat is sort of an interaction between.
It's an external environment.
So,
got it. Okay.
Exactly. If the environment's hot, then it's sort of jostling the system, and this is equivalent to looking at it, which sort of destroys the this sort of exponential complexity that you need for a quantum computer.
So these things exist. We've seen pictures of them, I guess they exist, and they are at super cold temperatures, but they're not reliable. And in a nutshell, see if I have this right. In a nutshell, you're doing digital computing, but using quantum, not silicon and carbon and digital. You're still inputting, you're still programming. I mean, you used the example earlier on, if I understood this, of taking a whole bunch of prime numbers and multiplying and seeing some huge number and seeing what the prime number factor. So you are able to input numbers and cause mathematical functions to happen. That I think we can all get our hands around, right? Now, when you talk though about quantum computers actually being better at synthesizing or better at exploring the quantum world as opposed to digital computers, that to me seems really weird, but also weirdly cool.
Well, it's not that weird when you think about it a little bit, because it's like they
Robbie,
speak
you're
the same
talking
language.
to a 70-year-old and an 84-year-old,
Oh.
and a bunch of people on here who are, other than Greg Father Newman, who Greg's on here, and some other really smart people who maybe have a better feel. But it is weird when you think about it, at least to me. Julia?
Well, okay. So how about the following analogy? So say you want to learn about a new design for like a sail, okay?
Okay.
And so how would you sort of test it? Like you have an idea, maybe this sail shape is better for this,
Yes.
condition.
Yeah.
You could develop a bunch of, computational fluid dynamics.
Yep.
Models, and you
CFD,
could run
got it.
on your,
Yeah.
yeah, CFD. You could do that, and you could run it on your computer, and you could see, does it perform well? Or you could, build the sail and go and try it out in the water and see if it's faster, right?
Yeah.
Those are like two extremes, right? One is like absolutely a model, and the other one is absolutely an experiment. But then there's something in the middle as well, where you sort of build a small version of it and put it in like a wind tunnel, and then you can sort of put apparatus on your sail and sort of measure the forces in different directions. And this is sort of an in-between where it's sort of an experiment, but also sort of a computation, because you're sort of setting the parameters yourself, and it speaks the same language as the physical system. So
that is the quantum
but
computer speaks the same language as the quanta, as the physics at that level.
that's right.
Got it.
That's right.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned something here. So in a nutshell, let me just see if I have this right. Quantum computing is just digital computing, but using at the atomic level, at the subatomic level, at the quantum level. You're still inputting stuff, you're still getting results out, to put
That's
it
right.
crudely, right? But in a whole different, and I guess ultimately a much faster, a much more powerful system than, it's kind of the difference between an abacus and a digital computer, and now this is that a crude explanation?
I would say it's not. Faster is possibly the wrong way to think about it. It's not that. It might be slower, in fact, to do like a single operation. But it's more that you're exploiting this new phenomenon, that like the information that it runs on is of a different nature. So it can do things that you can't even imagine doing with a classical computer.
Classical. No, there's a new word. Classical. Now, Julia, do what you
classical,
just did.
Yeah. So that's what we call. I think you were referring to them as digital computers. I think in the field we would say classical.
Classical. Julia, just do with your hands what you did a second ago.
Oh yeah, that the quantum computer takes in everything all at once.
Is that fair, Robbie? Is it doing more at one time?
So some people do put it that way. I think that's kind of a confusing way to put it, but you can view it that way. So for example, the picture I had earlier where, you look at it and it's in one thing and then it splits into many possibilities and it comes back.
Right.
Right. So you can phrase that as like it's going into many worlds and it's exploring all possible paths and then it's coming back to like our world. But I think this is, a science fiction-y misleading way, but that's one way to conceptualize it for sure.
I mean, it to me, it would allow explanation of the wind and the sea and the sun and the salt and whatever goes into the speed of a sail.
To put it another way, and thanks for that, Julia, I think, Robbie, everybody probably on here understands CFD, computational fluid dynamics, and the ability to model the water flowing over the foil or the hull, or indeed to model the whole fluid, all of the fluids, both air and water and waves and everything across the boat, and how impossible that seemed to be, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now today it's, probably with the computer I've got here on the desktop would do a pretty good job of pretty routine CFD work. And it's hard, it boggles the mind. But is this computer really going to do CFD work, or is it going to do something entirely different?
No, that was more of an analogy. So I guess it is to quantum systems as CFD is to wing design and sails and
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so let's see if there's some questions on here. I mean, people are blown away by this discussion. Joe Holtzman is saying, now this guy's an engineer. He was one of the designers of the Mustang. The guy he was at Ford. He's a sailor, long time friend, lives in Colorado. He says one thing that I like is that it's in financial transactions, complicated financial transactions, can you complete instantly? And it sounds like maybe speed is not the issue. It's dealing with complex, what?
Yeah, I mean, can I read it again? Sorry.
Yeah, the question from Joe, one, it's right in the middle there. One thing that I like is in financial transactions, complicated financial transactions, I think simulations, can you complete instantly? Can model
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand what he means there, but I mean, the financial market is not a quantum system. It's, it's a classical system. So,
Okay,
so
well, I'm
we
learning,
don't-
I guess I'm learning that there is a difference between classical, or what I think it was, or was calling digital, and you're saying that not necessarily that. I mean, let's take climate modeling, hugely complex, hugely difficult. All this, whether it's global cooling, global warming, whatever the problems, but we know that trying just to predict the weather, other than in San Diego, it's at 2 degrees in Newport Beach, they can predict it the night before pretty reliably. But
Right.
trying to predict it, tell me what, 4 or 5 days out, just about anywhere in the world is pretty damn difficult still. Is quantum computing going to have an impact on that? Or is that really just, again, more for classical computing, more for...
Yeah, so okay, I'm going to go with the boring answer and say no. And the reason is because so things that don't, things where quantum mechanics is not important, such as the financial market or the climate, classical computers do a pretty good job, or like pretty, like, you can't imagine doing much better. So but I would say my slogan is more like quantum computers will be useful for modeling systems where quantum mechanics is important. So these are things which are very small or very cold typically. So chemical, like drugs or chemical reactions, or like designing proteins, or designing materials that can be superconducting at low temperatures, or these kind of questions where the laws of quantum physics are very relevant.
So what you said in this, sorry, but what you said in this slide, it's really quantum computing is for figuring things out at the quantum level.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, got it.
That's primarily what it's for. But then there's also the hope that there will be some classical tasks, such as factoring, where it will be helpful, but we don't have many examples. And I don't think at the moment that any examples would actually give any advantages in modeling the climate, or modeling CFD, or modeling, what was it? Finance, or yeah.
Okay, so I've learned a lot. I mean, this is not the difference between an abacus and an Apple computer. This is a whole different.
Well, I would say it's bigger. It's a bigger difference. Yeah.
It's a whole different. It's a whole different kettle of fish. I get it. You're going to do things and study things and learn things at the quantum level because the computer interacts and reacts at the quantum level.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Good. I'm going to do a few slides for you, so the next time you do one of these slideshows, you can explain it to croutons. You can explain it to croutons like us and Andy Rose and a few others who, Andy doesn't even want to try to understand, but I now have learned a lot. I understand that, but I want to take you one step further, and maybe I'll go to a video here. The one we didn't have a lot of time in the pre-show, but let me, after your message, and needing engineers and more people to come into this very fertile scientific endeavor that you are steeped in as a PhD candidate at one of the finest technical universities in the world. There is AI, and let me now play this video, which is, as I understand it, is all AI, and then we'll come out of it and have you compare and contrast quantum computing and what the impacts are on AI and vice versa.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Now, I don't know who this Diep Nem is. It's a YouTube channel that has interesting stuff on it, but it's obviously the question. Okay, see that whole thing doesn't surprise or impress me that much. I'm not very good with doing. Well, I'm not bad for a professional amateur, but I can see putting together somebody and voicing it and doing all that stuff, here in the studio at the Beach Street Yacht Club. So that doesn't impress me. What does impress me is the reaction when an inanimate object reacts as if it's a human being. And that, to me, is impressive, and I guess that's what's scaring a lot of people. What's your take on AI? You guys must talk about this all the time. Julie,
We do talk about it all the time. Yeah.
Julie, did I express that well?
Yeah, I think so.
What's your take on AI and what's going on in that field?
Yeah, so as a disclaimer, I don't actually, do research in this field, but I'm interested in it for sure, and it's a big, it's very important. It's going to be a big part of life. So, I think that it's very impressive what these models are capable of right now. But I'd say to give my guess, which is not founded in any particular science, but
right.
I would say that we do not yet have the ability to have sentient, conscious AI. That would be my guess.
Say that again.
Or we don't yet have the ability to build AI which is generally intelligent, nor AI that is sentient or conscious. Yeah, I think this is
But you qualified you qualified that with a yet, and we're going to get to some of these questions in a minute because they're rolling in now.
Mm-hmm.
You say sentient yet. Why do people like Elon Musk, and I haven't talked to Larry personally about this, but I've read some of the things he's written and talked about, but why do some people who are very smart, why are they concerned about it? AI, that is.
Well, I think there's a reason to be concerned, even if you believe that they are not going to be sentient or generally intelligent. And the reason is that it's the most powerful, thing we've ever built. Like, intelligence is now a commodity. Like, you can, I guess I would say the fear is more, what will people do with this extremely powerful tool, rather than what will it do on its own? Or I think that's
Copy. That makes a lot of sense. It's an extremely powerful tool, and it's scary because it's so powerful. And when people have big guns or big weapons or big other things that they can do, okay, that makes sense.
That is what scares me for sure. Yeah,
I was impressed with the man who's considered the godfather of AI.
Who was on 60 Minutes the other night,
right
here in the States,
and when he got down to it, and what was his biggest concern about the further development of AI, and he says that it'll take us over.
It will take us over. Well, that's what Elon Musk and a couple others have hinted at. Okay, let's get to some questions here, because there's some starting I'm going to at the bottom and work up. Humans will only fear AI when they cannot enslave it or kill it. Okay, that's Graham Sweeney up in Scotland. Are there but okay, is the Stingray's trying to? Maybe he's getting a a finger wag from you, Julia. Are there animatronic ladies available that aren't so sentient that they become a bother? Okay, Julia, give him the finger. He finally got his finger wag. Stingray, that was Crutonic. Clark Chapin asks a serious question. Now, Clark is also an automotive engineer and a great sailor and race officer and judge, with whom I grew up, actually, in Michigan. Clark says, in other words, does Robbie believe that we haven't yet met the Turing test? The famous mathematician.
Right. So the Turing test is, so Alan Turing was a mathematician from the, in the 40s, and, one of my intellectual heroes for sure. Like, he basically, founded the entire idea of computation, like, formally, and defined what it means to do computation. And he had, incredible foresight, and he described this test, and that became the Turing test. And he said that he asked the question: is there any difference between simulation and actually being the real deal? So, like, if you
simulate it well enough, is there any difference?
Yes, exactly. If you have a system that, and you talk to it and you can't tell the difference between the system and a conscious person, like, is there any difference between the system and the conscious person? And so this was, the philosophical question.
What do you think? Robbie, what do you think?
Well, what do I think? That's a very good question.
Because let me ask this while you're thinking about it. Baton Rouge, whose real name is Baton Kennan, and he's down in Charleston, a hell of a good sailor and a good guy, smart as all of our fozi are. And you can see by their questions how thoughtful and interesting and so on. Baton Rouge, as he's saying, he says, "Do you, Robbie, believe in simulation theory?" Which is what we're talking about now.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do I think? I think the Turing test is a specific test where you talk to the machine, and you have to try and decide if it's a machine or if it's a person, and it's another human talking to it. So I put you on a chat room with something, and you have to tell me if you think it's a person or if you think it's a machine. And I think this level we have passed. Like, I think if you start talking to GPT-4, it will be, fairly convincing. Like, I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference. But I don't think that entails general intelligence. I think that's a bit of a weak bar. So I don't think that simulation of human conversation goes all the way, I would say. But if you could simulate everything, I philosophically sort of agree that there's no difference between being the thing and simulating everything it's doing,
We will get there, though, right? We will get to the point where the Turing test, we'll fail it. I mean, we won't be able to tell the difference, and in some cases, probably already, right?
Well, I think we're there. No, that's what I'm saying. We're there already. For sure.
Exactly.
Like, I think if you go and talk to GPT-4 on the OpenAI website, and it will seem like it's a real person for sure.
Yeah.
But the feeling, it's not the anything. The sentient part is, but feeling.
What's the difference between feeling and thinking or seeing and hearing?
Would I fall in love with a voice?
Well, okay, that's a good example. Good point.
I think not. But I could enjoy the voice, or the voice could remind me of somebody, but I would not fall in love with the voice.
Well, but I mean, let's just say, take your late great husband, Conrad. Were you in love with his voice, per se?
Oh, it's wonderful.
Okay, so that's my point. And if now...
But it wasn't why I was in love with him.
Well, now we're going to give Julia, where's my camera, a finger wag. Jeez.
Perhaps I have another maybe thing I can say on this sentience point.
You're helping us out because you realized we were getting Crutonic here.
Yeah.
Good. Go ahead, please.
Well, no, continue.
Please.
So I think a good analogy is when we tried to build airplanes. So, before we had airplanes, we looked at the birds and we were like, oh, look, these things are flying.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be great if we could fly, right? Wouldn't it be great if we could, give ourselves wings, or if we could build a mechanical bird that would carry us.
Yep.
Right. This is probably something that
And that was the early attempt at
thought, like,
flight,
thousands of years ago.
was emulating birds.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. But then, what do we have today? We don't have mechanical birds that have beaks and feathers. We have airplanes which have,
entirely different systems.
It's different, right?
Yeah.
But it's useful to us because it basically means that we can fly, right? I can fly back home to London for Christmas, so like we can effectively fly, even though we haven't built a mechanical bird. And I think the same thing might happen in AI, in that we, build the capability of incredible intelligence without ever needing to build a human type of sentience or consciousness into these systems.
Because good point.
I guess there's no reason to.
That's very nice.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
We'll let you go in a sec here because I know you got to get back to the pursuit of your PhD. Gordon Smith makes, I think, a very interesting point up here higher. Is it still on the screen?
Yep. The mistake is probably using the word quantum and computing together.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps quantum modeling.
I think that's a fair point, Robbie. I think to those of us, we're thinking, oh, this what you're doing with this super cold device is like the computer sitting here on the desk, only a lot faster and a lot more powerful because it's a computer. We have information in, information out, garbage in, garbage out, good info in, good results, and analysis out. And Gordon makes a point. It doesn't sound like you're doing computing per se. It sounds like you're doing modeling. Is that fair to say?
I would call it computing. I mean, you could also call computing modeling as well, because a computer is like, I'd say it's a blurred line, and it's a good question, but I would call it computing because you're taking the quantum information going on and you're translating it into whatever your computer has,
and whatever your frame of reference, your reality.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say.
Okay, another question related that Fritz Mueller asks, and I think that's up off the screen. Would quantum computing work on particle physics and make places like CERN obsolete?
Wait, where is this? Sorry?
He's saying, would quantum computing on particle physics, would it make places like CERN, CERN, CERN obsolete?
Oh, that's a great question. Right. So one of the things you could do with a quantum computer is you could, simulate high energy physics, which is, at the moment we have to build these huge
particle accelerators.
Yeah, and that's a great question because you could do that, and that's one of the things that people are excited about is that, so say like black holes, we don't understand them, but we can potentially study them with a quantum computer by modeling it and stuff. But to that, I would say it's still based on a model. And this comes back to the question of, is quantum mechanics correct? Or I guess in the case of CERN, is quantum field theory correct?
Yeah.
And, so you can pick your model, which you think is correct, and you can simulate it. But at the end of the day, you also need to check with reality, I think. So I'm not sure about that question. It's a good question.
But that's also in one of your slides is saying that you can use your button over there, Julia, if you want. One of your slides is saying that by doing this, and I'm going to go back to Gordon Smith's use of the word modeling, by doing this modeling at the quantum level, at the subatomic level, is that the right expression? Subatomic? Atomic? Subatomic? Subatomic?
Yeah.
Okay, at the subatomic level.
I guess, well, the things they do at CERN are definitely subatomic.
Right.
They're almost subatomic, yeah.
But in your slide, one of the things you said is by doing this modeling, this computing, this research in these quantum computers at the subatomic level, you're going to find out more about quantum physics and what is true and what is not. For sure. That was one of the key points.
Yeah, but I mean, the applications I had for actual, human commercial application were chemistry and materials, which is not subatomic. That's more like at the molecular level, I guess.
Right.
But it's anywhere where quantum mechanics is important. This will be helpful. Yeah.
Heisenberg. Are you going to be the next Heisenberg?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm you know, a genius like you know, there are some, you know, you see that when you work in this field, you see some super smart people.
Are you intimidated? I'm serious. Are you? I know you now, and you know we've hung out a little bit down there and had a glass of wine and watched you sail and had you on the podium for interviews, post-race interviews and so on. But are you intimidated by people at CalTech, or do you fit in? Sometimes do you feel like you're brighter than some of the people there? I mean, how does that work?
I would say that I don't feel like an imposter, but there are for sure, you know, certain grad students and certain professors who are just like obviously extremely like, you know, on another level of genius and insight that is I find it inspiring rather than intimidating, I would have to say. Yeah.
Are the people who are super bright, even brighter perhaps than you, are they practical or are they just theoretical? I mean, I guess you have to.
They can be for sure. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. They you know, they're very smart people, and I think this field attracts them because it's you know, trying to build something that has never yet appeared in nature. So it's a sort of very ambitious goal, which combines a lot of ideas from physics and from computer science and from math. So I think it attracts these kind of people, but all the way through there's you know, very talented people who I've come across since being here. Yeah.
A couple last questions, and we really truly will let you go. How far away from getting a computational modeling device, computer, that is mistake-free or virtually mistake-free, or is below your threshold of 1 per 100 mistakes or whatever it is? How is that in the next week? Is that in the next year? Is that in the next decade? Is that?
Yeah, this is the big question for sure, and this is the question that, you know, people who are looking to invest would want to ask. And you know, I think people who say 5 years are definitely, you know, delusional or like lying.
5 years 5 years is delusional. So
too short. Yeah,
too short.
I think it will be like 10 to, you know, 10 plus for sure. But I think no more than. To be honest, I don't want. I mean, these predictions sort of are very difficult and they always go wrong. So, but I'd say that the only thing that we know for sure is it will be at least 10 years from now before like we have a large fault tolerant computer. It could be possible in like between 10 and 20. For sure, there's definitely a chance for that. Yeah.
And you're how old?
I'm 24 now.
So you think easily in your lifetime. I mean, before you're Julia's and
yeah,
my age,
I do think in my lifetime. I do think in my lifetime for sure. Otherwise, I mean, it would be a bit demotivating, I guess.
Well, that was seriously going to be my next question. Is it, if it were not to be in your lifetime, if you found out in the next, you know, couple 3 years that when do you expect to have your PhD, by the way?
I think another 2-3 years.
So in the next 2 or 3 years, if you were to find out in that period of time that this probably isn't going to happen anytime, it's kind of like, you know, we were all, Clark Chapin and Joe Holtzman, some of these guys will know, we had a guy that I actually taught to sail he thought he was leading the way to nuclear fusion, and he was going to have a little box that was going to produce energy in everybody's home. And that keeps going down further and further down the road. That was 40, 50 years ago that he thought he'd had the breakthrough. It was a little thing called KMS, company in Ann Arbor, and of course there's places all over the place. So that would be demotivating. Yeah. You're saying if you didn't think it was going to happen in your lifetime.
I think that question is a question that a lot of people like myself who are in this field ask themselves, because it is a very ambitious goal and it's a completely new technology, and we don't really know for sure if it's going to work out the way we expect. You know, partly because we're not like completely sure about all of this, you know, the theory of quantum mechanics itself, right? So so a lot of people ask themselves that, and I think, to be honest, if there was a discovery which made it extremely, like, presented a huge obstacle that we didn't foresee, that made it extremely likely that this would happen in my lifetime, I would probably switch fields. Like, I would probably become a researcher in a different field, and I think a lot of people would do the same. I think the field would, at that point, it would lose investment, it would lose energy, and it would sort of start to die, because people wouldn't be as excited. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think this is what happens to research fields when they sort of, when we learn more about them. They either sort of grow or they shrink as sort of. And I'm not opposed to, like, from a personal career perspective, I'm not at all opposed to, if quantum computing looks less appealing, and then there's another field which looks more exciting. I'm not opposed to
jump
at some point in the future switching. Yeah.
You know what, people, and I'm getting comments and some DMs and so on, as you young people would say, DMs. You know what that is, Julia?
Direct message.
Yeah, exactly. See how smart Julia is? From people saying, what's really refreshing is that Robbie is willing to say, sometimes we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing, Robbie. It really is. I think we know
very little, for sure.
It's
I think there's a quote from some scientist, I can't remember who, but it was like, okay, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's like, the more you know, the more you realize you know nothing. Also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of the more you know, one final question, then we will let you go. We're an hour and 12 minutes into this. What do you think of the current America's Cup style of racing, the Sail GP racing, foiling? A lot of people on here are saying we'd rather see, watch, and even participate in racing where sails go up and down and people sail upwind and you can tell the difference between beating and reaching and running. Or are we just a bunch of old farts and this is the future of the sport and we ought to get on with it?
I actually agree with you. I think that I really I watch YouTube videos of the old style of, America's Cup racing with the, huge yachts and match races and the pre-starts and downwind laughs and all of this. Like, it's so exciting. And I think that it's, as a sailing community, we don't want that side of the sport to die. And I think the GovCup is doing a great job, and Congressional Cup and these regattas of like keeping it alive. But it's a shame. It is a shame that the America's Cup, moved away. But I guess perhaps the America's Cup is not, it's not the worst thing for the America's Cup to move into the foiling world, because it's sort of where the technology gets developed, because it's they want to make these things faster. So this is where the sort of technology comes from, and then it filters down into the rest of the sailing world. I think this is how it works. But it would be good to have still an equally prestigious sort of match racing pinnacle, for sure.
In traditional heavy slow boats. Yeah. Okay. Well, you just made Andy Rose, if he's watching, you made Andy Rose's day, and no doubt you're going to get lots more invitations to sail on It's Okay, because
I hope so. Yeah.
He's so adamant about this.
Yeah.
I don't see if there's any other pressing questions. Julie, do you see any there's a lot of going on now, discussion about our favorite subject. Gordon, if knowledge were Swiss cheese, Gordon Smith is saying, there would be more whole than cheese. Professor Emeritus Niels Bjorn Anderson. Okay.
That's nice.
Nice.
I sort of look at Rick Bannerow says, so Noah was the first sailor to use quantum mechanics since he used qubits to build his ark.
Tell us in a sentence, what's a qubit?
What's a qubit?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, let me think about that one. Okay, I would say it's a sphere, or it's a ball. Okay, which is a weird description, but okay, imagine a ball, and imagine the North Pole is 1 and the South Pole is 0. So if I have a normal bit, it has to be at the South Pole or the North Pole, or it can actually be on like the line between them. So if you imagine a stick, right, connecting the North and the South Pole. So if I'm in the middle, if I'm at like the center of the Earth or whatever, that means I have a 50-50 chance of being, 0 or 1. Or if I'm like, slightly higher, then I have a slightly higher chance of being 1. If I'm all the way at the top, I'm definitely 1. Right? This is like a classical bit. This is the states it can be in, is like on the pole. But a quantum bit can be anywhere on the surface or inside this ball. So it can be on the equator, and then this is a completely different sort of state for it to be in.
I mean, so a qubit is part of your quantum modeling part. It's at the where what happened to my headphone here? I just lose my earpod. Do we still have sound? Did I lose sound?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Are you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So quantum, this qubit you're using, it's the 1 and the 0, but it can also be somewhere in between. And this is like the transistor that's either on or off, but with a whole lot of other variation in between.
If I have a transistor that's like, 50% of the time it's on and 50% of the time it's off, I can put this in the middle of like the pole connecting north and south, right?
Yeah.
But I can be like anywhere on this 3D ball if I have a quantum, if I have a qubit.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
So it's an infinite number of positions. Can you measure?
Yeah,
that?
but I mean, there's an infinite number of like possible probabilities for a classical bit anyway. So the continuum is not really what's different about it. It's more that I can explore this whole 3D thing rather than being only on this 1D.
Linear one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Robbie, anything else you want to wrap up with? Anything else you want to tell us?
No, this was super fun. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's been awesome. And thanks everyone for listening, I guess. And
will you come back and do it again?
Yeah, you were wonderful.
Oh, I would, for sure. I mean, anytime.
Great. We'd appreciate it. I'm sure everybody on here.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was very interesting. I learned a lot.
Yes.
I hope I'm sure everybody else did too.
Yeah, thanks so much for putting it together. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if you're just joining us, this has been from live via Skype from Pasadena down near L.A. at CalTech University. Robbie King, who is a PhD candidate down there. And the comments are coming. By the way, Julia likes to remind us all, speaking of comments, Julia.
Yes. Don't forget to go back and read the comments. You can read them at your leisure or anytime.
Yeah, and we don't turn the comments off, as you probably know, Robbie, because we don't have many trolls, and if we do, we knock them off. And there's some friends of yours and otherwise, a lot of people, great comments. Can quantum entanglement happen over time? Asking because I need to rewatch this. Stingray, that gets a thumbs up, Julie. You got to give him a thumbs up for that one. That was good. Robbie, thank you very much indeed. We'll talk soon and hopefully see you in Newport Beach, if not somewhere else.
Yeah, hopefully see you soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Ciao.
Okay.
Ciao for now.
Bye now.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everyone.
Wow, Julia, that was
that was fun.
eye-opening and interesting, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. You've got John Emmett to follow that. John's a pretty bright boy. We'll see how he does. I put this in on purpose, this day in history, having no idea Robbie was going to use that analogy about flight and birds and simulating birds. But it's not very long ago that they put a camera in a balloon. And they did it in Paris before, but that image does not exist today. They've lost that image. But here is an image on this day in history, a balloon view of Boston taken on October 13th, 1860, 9 years after the first America's Cup. And it was celebrated because they finally got a look at what, there were a bunch of quotes, but the idea was, this is what a bird sees of Boston, Boston Common and the harbor. And the picture was taken. And it's in 1860, not circa, but in 1860. It's the world's oldest surviving aerial photo. That's not that long ago.
No.
Huh? It's 170 some years ago, right? On October 13th, photographer James W. Black, who I checked, I can't see that he was a sailor, but one never knows, operating Samuel A. King's hot air balloon Queen of the Air, took the first aerial photo made in the U.S. when he captured this image above Boston Common. Black's photo came just 2 years, 2 full years after French photographer and balloonist Nadar took the first known aerial photograph. This image is of particular historic importance, as much of what he captured was destroyed in the Great Fire of 1872. And Nadar, if that's how you pronounce that, the French guy's earliest images have not survived. 13th of October, 1860, and I don't know. It's just amazing what has happened in such a short period of time, let alone what has happened in our lifetimes. Yes. Speaking of which, we love to have John Emmett's report. He's got another one. He is in Weymouth, in windy Weymouth, as you'll see, reporting in. Coach's Corner, Super Fozy, John Emmett.
Hi Tom, Julia and all the Fozy. I'm here once again in a very windy Weymouth. Indeed, I think the venue, very good venue for sailing, obviously that's why it was chosen for the 2012 Olympic Games, probably loses more days with too strong a wind rather than not enough. And actually on those not enough days, it's very good for fitness with very good cycling and so on in the facility. But yeah, today, hard day but rewarding day in the off sailing, and I'm just packing the boat up. But the big thing I wanted to say first of all, and hopefully you can hear me because it is really quite windy, is congratulations to everyone who's just qualified from the Olympic Games. I'm just so pleased for you because I know what it means. You know, it's that lifelong ambition for a lot of people, and whether that qualification is in terms of just qualifying the country, and I will be walking through the qualification process. So in Asia, in the Ilkas, we've already had one place, but there's 2 more Asian places up for grabs in December. So before we have the World Championships. But for those people who've been in trials, you know, it's a really stressful part of your life. But I do believe very much in a trials system because it's the ability to perform under pressure that makes the difference. And I'm just really happy to be here and to be part of, you know, some incredibly successful teams. And yeah, windy Weymouth, we've got an awful lot out of this venue, and it's the squad system which seems to give the results. Although the Olympics, it's special, only one person goes. So for those recent announcements, I'm very, very happy for you. For those people who are still in trials or still trying to qualify the nation, keep going, enjoy the journey. And remember, you know, everybody's got things going on in their life. You never know how another person's feeling. It's about controlling the controllables and doing your absolute best. So yeah, big announcement starting to come, and yeah, we shall wake up one day and it'll be Olympic Games, and there we go, onwards and upwards. Personally, I'm spending quite a lot of time now with the ILCA class trying to build pathways, and one of the big things I'm doing is looking at the ILCA book, because the majority of my focus is on the top end of the sport. Indeed, I had to fill out some CVs recently to apply for jobs, and it's the first time I've ever done that, which is amazing. So I'm probably not very good at it. Like anything else, practice makes perfect. Well, not perfect, but makes you improve. I've always been so lucky. I've been headhunted that the individual sailors have actually come to me. So I'm actually probably more used to that one-to-one stuff with Tula. We sometimes had a joint relationship with training partners and stuff, especially when we went to expensive venues to make the most of the budget, you know, like Japan. But yeah, I've been spending a lot of time in front of a computer and trying to help the future sailors. So we need to remember the vast majority of sailors are club sailors. So I train here at the Weymouth Portland National Sailing Academy. My club, Castle Cove, is over there. Very different atmosphere, very different objectives, and yeah, I love the club atmosphere. Just volunteered to help, you know, take down the marquee for their annual prize giving, and that's social and dinner and dance, and I love all that side of things. At the same time, I come here, put the hours into the old legs to try and get, you know, the best result I can at the international competition, and the opportunity to sail and train against some of the best sailors in the world. But the vast majority of us, and the backbone of our sport, is club sailing, and that's really what the ILCA book is. aimed at getting people on the water. That's how I got involved with sailing. I read all the Fenhurst books growing up, and it just seems amazing to think that I've actually written several of them now, and just to pass that knowledge down. And if it's really windy day like today, maybe for some club sailors they're better off sitting reading a book rather than going swimming, or on a light wind day as well. But yeah, I guess nowadays most people read things on phones and tablets rather than paper. But when I grew up, that was what the keenest people were doing. I remember Ben Ainsley was always reading the Yachts and Yachting, which came out every fortnight, about the America's Cup, and I think that was perhaps very, very telling. But yeah, we need to look after our club sailors. We need to keep them enthused, get them into good habits, because those habits stay with you for a lifetime, and it's much easier as a coach to work in some respects with younger sailors before they've got those habits, because often by the time sailors get to me, they'll be very good at the things they're very good at, but they may well struggle with bad habits that they've got really ingrained. So yeah, right from the beginning, I think we need to teach people to sail in the best possible way, and it's just like tying your shoelaces or brushing teeth. It's something you don't really think about. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I spend a lot of my time these days looking at the weather, not only for the sailing, but to try and do these reports because it's not only upwind, you need to know when the cloud is coming. Often in an upwind scenario, we're looking for dark clouds to drop more wind and to pull the wind round, whereas when we're trying to do our bits to camera, last thing we want to do is get rained on. So I'll leave it there and see you on the show.
Okay, that's John Emmett. Get to the front of the fleet. John Emmett Sailing, we love his stuff. And the comments are rolling in.
Yes.
Rolling in about Robbie, and I want a refund. I thought that snazzy roll tack, Rick Rundle is saying, he's talking about the picture of Robbie King that I had on my Facebook page. And I think I should have asked Robbie, it's in pre-start. I think it was in a GovCup pre-start, and it looks like he's back on the stern quarter roll tacking the boat with a tiller extension. I think it was probably pre-started, but it's an interesting shot. I should have pulled that up. There was another interesting comment here. They're talking about John's beard as usual. Rick Bannerow, aha! You see that one, Julia?
Yep.
World Egg Day is celebrated on Sailing Illustrated with a master egghead. Thank you, Robbie, for going where I know I'll never expect. Robbie's still watching there. I got a laugh out of him. Thanks again, Robbie. Okay, that's gets us to Sail GP after John's report, and it's coming up this weekend. It's Friday today and Saturday, Sunday, the 14th and 15th in Spain. I go back, so it's in Cadiz, and Andalusia is where it is. And the press conference was this morning, followed by 3 practice races. So there's some news from all that. Press release from the USA team, perhaps the biggest news. During the opening press conference today for this weekend's Spain Sail Grand Prix, U.S. Sail GP team driver and CEO Jimmy Spithill wanted to set realistic expectations for his American squad as Taylor Canfield, which we reported on here. I think several of you knew that before it was announced, as Taylor Canfield steps in to replace the injured Hans Henken. This was happening some weeks ago, in what Spithill calls the, quote, most difficult role on the boat, unquote, the flight controller. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how Taylor does. They did well today in practice, and Jimmy continues. He said, we have steadily been building our results. Yeah, sort of. However, when you lose a key team member due to injury, those hours together are lost as well. Good point. I think John Emmett would agree with that. Mm. Spithill was referring to the Henken injury that took place when their F-50 crashed off its foils on day one of the Italian Sail Grand Prix in Taranto 3 weeks ago. Henken is now back in the U.S. and is progressing well on his recovery. We wish him well as well, of course. Now, this was another scene at the press conference. They had a lot of the women tactician strategists on the stage today. And remember, the Aussies have yet to win in season 4. They're still at the top of the leaderboard, but Tommy is itching for a win in Cadiz, Curtis says, after Australia is hunting their first season 4 win, the Nina Curtis. So let's go to the press conference. This is a good video. Thank you, SailGP, for producing. Instead of having to play the whole thing or me have to go in and take excerpts out, they've taken 3.5 minutes of, I think, the most interesting moments from this morning's press conference. Have a look.
When you are on the boat, you are performing much better. Yeah.
We've had a really great couple of events. I think if SailGP racing, though, it's just there's such small details. Yeah, it's always tough. We love Cadiz. We've had some up and down experiences here racing, but we love it as a venue. Hopefully, be back on the podium.
Saturday when we went out was quite challenging for us and also a little scary in the first place. And we were wondering if the others, they struggled as well, and they did. So that gave us a little confidence.
Hans is recovering well, which is great to hear. He's still a little ways off getting back on the boat. He'll be massively missed. When you lose a key team member, there's no shortcut in SailGP. You know, the hours add up, especially in that role. So we have to remain realistic. We have to be motivated, and we want to bat above our average, but we have to be realistic as a group and as a team.
Cadiz is probably my favourite regatta because, you know, that was when the women started to sail on board the boats, and particularly memorable for us because we took away that win 2 years ago. So it's really exciting to be back. We're really excited for all the changes to come and where this women's pathway is going.
Yeah, I think the beginning of the season was quite tough for us, but you know, it's just sport. Like, we have some bad moments and some good ones. We're not far from putting everything together. So yeah, I'm quite confident and I cannot wait to see them on the water.
Like France, you have seemed to be like a step backwards in this start of the season.
I actually failed to see how that's true. So we've got a third, a fourth and a fifth, which I think is really respectable in a fleet like this. So I'm a little bit puzzled as to why that question's there. We know every team here has the capability of having an absolute shocker, and I expect it to happen at some point in the season, and for our team it happened in Saint-Tropez. Yeah, moving on to Halifax, we're pumped. It's coming in June.
June. 1st and 2nd of June.
June. Thank you.
As long as we go foiling, then we're happy. We don't really enjoy the drifting.
We're incredibly excited to be back. It's obviously been quite a different journey for the last few events for us as a team, but you know, to have a wing again and be back racing is something, you know, we're very excited for. You know, we've obviously missed a few days racing now, so it's going to be a challenge for the team to get back up to speed, but you know, everyone's super excited by that challenge. Yeah, obviously we went from being joint equal to 8th, missing the second day in Saint-Tropez, and then to be lumped a 5th in Taranto because SailGP couldn't get us a wing in time. We thought it was pretty unfair as a team, but in saying that, it's better than no points at all. So
I think it's definitely not long till there'll be a female driver for sure. Whether it's me or whether it's somebody else, so it's really, really exciting. I think it'll be a massive step forward for sailing.
Back in the day, we've always had umpires on the water judging situations from the boat's view, and now they're judging it from a 3D perspective, looking at digital boats. Kind of got to rethink how we interpret the rules now, and have to play a little more towards how the umpires are judging all these situations, but they are going to cause a lot of crashes, and that's concerning for us.
Yeah, well, they had a bit of a brang. Phil Robertson sailing for Canada, but New Zealand, as you saw in that press release, and that presser rather, the outtakes from the press conference, the New Zealand Mark's triumphant return was the big headline earlier this morning, with 2 wins in the practice racing. So they had a good go. They've got their new wing. I wonder if the new wing is better than the other wings. There will be people asking that question. New Zealand bounced back from its enforced racing hiatus by picking up 2 race wins and ending Cadiz's practice racing at the top of the leaderboard. Not that it means much. Tied on points with Rockwool, Denmark. The Kiwis picked up a 1-4-1 race record across the 3 practice races, ending the day with 27 points. It comes after the team suffered, as you all know, significant wing damage at the end of the Saint-Tropez race day 1, which ruled them out of racing on day 2 and for the entire Taranto event. I love this picture. And speaking of the Danes, this will make Gordon Smith happy. I put that in just for you, Gordon. Rockwool, Denmark, which has had a strong season start, also performed well today in the practice racing, picking up 3 second-place finishes in a consistent showing. Meanwhile, Jimmy Spithill's U.S. team finished the day in third with 23 points, picking up 4-3-3 as their scores, despite the absence of flight controller Hans Henken, who is recovering from injuries sustained in Toronto. Former flight controller Taylor Canfield, as we mentioned, is subbing into the role at this event. It'll be interesting because a lot of people, I'll just say it, this is professional sport, and I'll say it, there are a lot of people who think Taylor will do a better job than Hans. And we'll see. Maybe we're already seeing that.
Yeah.
Here's that picture of the look at that's scary looking. That's not even the foreshortening, or at least not much of it from a long lens. That's happening this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Australia is still at the top of the heap, even though they have yet to win an event here in season 4. Tom Slingsby and co. on top of 35. Sir Ben Ainsley doing well on 29 points, tied with Spain with Diego Botín for third, the Danes in fourth, and the Kiwis, having missed an event, 2 events really, are on 23 points, and they're back, it looks like, in action. The racing is tomorrow and Sunday, same time, 6:30 PDT, our time here, 13:30 UTC, GMT, UTC, 15:30 local time, Central European time in Cadiz. Cadiz. That's the goer this weekend. I'll get up and watch that 6:30, I think, Julie.
I'll be awake.
You're always awake then, or so I hear. I don't want to give our viewers any ideas. So one hears.
Yes.
Right? Shake your finger at me. Robbie King, what a fabulous guest he was. I'm not surprised, Julia.
Yes.
I'm not surprised.
He was wonderful.
Okay, so now, what do you think we should do next, Julia? Should we do Bravo Zulu? You tell me what you think we should do.
We might as well do a Bravo Zulu.
I think we'll do America's Cup.
Oh, okay.
Because 1 year from yesterday is the start of the 37th edition, the match, that is, of the America's Cup. And in the meantime, we are still wondering whether this regatta is going to happen in Jeddah. I think if they go to Jeddah under the current circumstances, I'm sure they're negotiating their way out of it because there's money involved, and follow the money.
Right.
I'll be very surprised if they go there. But in the meantime, they issued several different teams issued videos and releases that yesterday, the 12th of October is the 1 year. Hence, that's when the match will start 1 year from yesterday.
Right.
In Barcelona, and here's that video. Or one of those videos. I just hope there's some wind next year. I just hope then, or it's not too breezy, too bumpy,
Yep.
and not too light. It's going to be light, it looks like, in Cadiz this weekend. I don't know if any of you has done there was a couple of comments about it being light, but maybe somebody can take a look at windy.com or one of those.
I did before, but I haven't recently.
Here is an event notice that went out yesterday to all AC 37 competitors. Here are the precise dates in 2024 for the Challenger Selection Series. That's what CSS means. The racing period published under the protocol. The first day for racing will be Thursday, the 29th of August. That's the start of the Challenger Selection Series. And the final day will be Monday, the 7th of October. And my old friend Russell Green, sometime adversary, sometimes teammate, sometimes judging and umpiring mentee of mine, issuing those papers on behalf of America's Cup 37. He's also the rules advisor for ETNZ. Only 3 days between the pre-regatta, the final pre-regatta, which is in Barcelona. You know, they've had the first one, which was in Villanova, the next one that's going to be in Jeddah, then there's going to be another one next year just before the start of the CSS, and there's only to be 3 days between that pre-regatta and the start of the CSS. And thank you, Daniel Grun, for calling that to my attention earlier today. Better not have a problem coming out of that pre-regatta because you won't have much time to fix it. So I think that's just another reason why the team's going to be very cautious, very conservative in that event. And for Stingray and Julie Aarons, I don't know if Julie's going to make it over there. I'm pretty sure Stingray's already rented his flat. But the match dates and the schedule, the event, the match, that is the finals, the Defender and the Challenger, the eventual Challenger, starts on Saturday the 12th, 2 races. Sunday the 13th, 2 races. Nothing till Wednesday, and that's not an America's Cup race. There is an America's Cup race on Wednesday, and then the women's AC final also on Wednesday. So it's a 1-race day for the main cup. Spare day on Friday the 18th if they've lost some races prior to in those first 3 days. Then Saturday and Sunday, 2 races. That's it. If it all works, that's it. It's over in 5 days, in 1 week. Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, there's some spare days, some reserve days after that, if racing is behind schedule on the following Monday and Tuesday, and then on Thursday, if on Monday the 21st, if they get somehow weathered out, if that's a word, they start racing on Monday the 21st and keep racing until the thing's over. So I don't know. It's quick. It's over.
Yeah.
There's the racing area. They published that now. No surprise. We've known about that, and it's right up there against. It's basically where we did the Olympic match racing, and a bit further offshore than that, but it's right there off the. I guess you can see here on camera 4. This is the Porto Olímpico Barcelona right here.
Yeah.
And the port. And no surprise, the race committee can set. Ian Murray, who's the regatta director again, can set anywhere in that area. Okay, we're almost an hour and 45 minutes into this one. We've got a great AAAA that I'm going to run on Tuesday. Alistair sent a terrific one, and I pinged him before and said, I think we're going to run long with SailGP and with Robbie. So we do, however, have a wrap-up video. I like now to put a video in here in the last leg because we said on Tuesday, the Middle Sea Race, the Rolex Middle Sea Race is coming up in Malta in a couple weeks. And they produced another terrific Rolex preview video. And I can't help but get excited about yacht racing when I see one of these videos. Enjoy. I think enjoy. Oh, you know what? It will run. I don't have to start it, I don't think. Oh, maybe I do. Try it again. Come on, video. There it goes. It just had a long Rolex intro.
The Rolex Middle Sea Race, one of sailing's great offshore challenges. Starting and finishing in Malta, this 606 nautical mile race, organised by the Royal Malta Yacht Club and supported by Rolex for over 20 years, is renowned for its circular racetrack, and breathtaking scenery. The Strait of Messina, the active volcanoes of Etna and Stromboli, and the outlying islands, including Favignana, Pantelleria, and Lampedusa, provide a stunning route around Sicily and at the epicenter of the Mediterranean Sea.
To me, it's a bit of a mythical race in that lots of corners, lots of landmarks that I enjoy going around.
The competition is compelling. For the 44th edition, more than 100 yachts from over 25 nations are expected to take on a relentless challenge, where the crews can encounter punishing and brutal seas and benign calm, often in the same race, placing extraordinary physical and tactical demands on even the most experienced competitors.
This one is something special because it's super technique, super complex, and you really need to be at the top of all your skills in this race.
Professional crews on cutting-edge multi-hulls and Grand Prix monohulls share the spectacular course with smaller boats, crewed by skilled and passionate amateurs. And it is these entries that give the race its incomparable Corinthian spirit.
You can never relax in this race, really, even in light condition. It's mentally very demanding.
The 2023 Rolex Middle Sea Race commences from Valletta on the 21st of October.
So, next Saturday.
Glorious.
Glorious. It is. I want to go.
Me too.
But I've got a wedding to go to.
You do?
Next weekend.
You do.
Daughter Meg is getting married next Friday night down in San Diego, so we won't be doing a show next Friday. We'll be going to a wedding. Meantime, we're going to do Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. I'm in a little bit better mood than I was on Tuesday, given what's going on in the world. And we have to, we have to carry on, right, Julia?
We do.
Speaking of, I couldn't help myself. World Egg Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this was apropos World Egg Day, and thank you, Fosie, who sent this. That's ridiculous. We were both so drunk, I'm surprised you even remember that party, the Easter Bunny is saying. How do you even know they're mine?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Greg Phillips in Oz sent that up. Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much. Now, Julie, get your finger ready. How did you meet your husband? The one lady asked. She says, I'm a pharmacist. He came in to buy condoms, and he asked for size X, 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 XL. And after we were married, I realized that he stutters. Ted Ryman. Who else but Ted Ryman?
Oh, yes.
Said
He gets the good ones.
Yeah. And then this one is clean. And this came from Joe Holtzman, courtesy of the Michigan Lighthouse Keepers Association, I think, my home state. This is your boyfriend's house? Yep. What do you think?
He's a real keeper.
It's corny, isn't it? It's nice. It's clean. I like it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
He's a real keeper.
Right.
I think Meg's fiance is a real keeper too. I
Yes.
think he is terrific, and we're looking forward to that wedding next Friday in San Diego. We'll be at the Yacht Club and at a couple other places, and it'll be good fun. Now, finally, I didn't put a drinking thing in here, although I got one. Just a note, but this guy had to have been drinking.
Oh.
Huh? This is really a caption contest. Bannero sent this in. Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate that. Thanks for all the yolks, Stingray is saying.
Yeah.
And I don't know what these guys are doing on you'd call that the leeward side of the boat, the downhill side of the boat. The thing looks precariously close to rolling right on its side to me, but what do I know?
Indeed.
I know nothing about power boats. I wouldn't be on that side of the boat.
Mm-mm.
Thanks, Rick, for sending that photo in. Caption contest. To the finish line we go. And we just ask again, Julia.
Yes. There are many opportunities to like, follow, and share in this program. Do so.
Yeah. Especially, we need the likes and the subs, they call it on YouTube.
Right.
Subscribers would
Right.
help us on YouTube, get us up over 1,000. That'll do good things for us. Comments, as we always say, are welcome even in replay.
Yeah.
And as we said at the top of the show, help us out, become a patron, give us a few bucks a month, patreon.com/join/
I said the other
Sailing
night,
Illustrated.
too, subs don't mean for that you have to pay.
Yeah. No, it's not like a magazine subscription.
Yeah, but that you subscribe to watching the program.
Right. You just subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Same as you can subscribe, same
Right.
for Facebook as well.
Right.
Thank you to everybody for the media that we use in today's show, the photos, the images, the videos, and the audio. We appreciate very much those contributions. As always, Fritz Mueller, we appreciate you. Gordon Smith, I knew Robbie would be good, but I didn't know if it would be that good.
Uh-huh.
I was really impressed, weren't you?
I was.
Very pleased.
I was.
Great stuff. Thanks, everybody. I hope you're having a great weekend down under where it's already Saturday and it's late night in Europe on Friday. Have a cocktail and a good night's sleep. We'll see you on Sail GP maybe tomorrow morning at 06:30 our time. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.